So if we let nature be nature and we stay out of it, this is the predictable pattern that always occurs. There's two kinds of succession. The first one is called primary. Primary occurs in places where there was no previous ecosystem. There would have had to initially be bare rock. But we have a few spots around the world that still produce new rock. One of them is Hawaii. These are all pictures from Hawaii. The top left is a lava flow that is cooled, and you can see some very simple initial organisms that grow on it. And they start to break that rock down with their roots and their enzymes, and that makes the first soil. And then you see eventually shrubs, small bushes, are able to attach their roots to whatever soil is present, and they continue to break the rock up and develop the soil. And finally, it turns into a lush paradise, and we should all move there and never look back. The other type is called secondary succession, and it's where you already had an ecosystem, something wiped it out, like Mount St. Helens exploding, and so the ecosystem tends to come back faster because a lot of the ingredients are already in place. There's already soil that doesn't have to develop. The main takeaway here, once again, is it tends to be a faster process than primary. Things that are there at the beginning are called pioneer species. The simplest things that form are going to be lichens and moss. Very simple organisms. They live on the rock. They attach to the rock. Once those lichens and moss start to break down the rock a little bit, then you can support native grasses, weeds, and then flowering plants come next. And these are what we call, by the time you get to flowering plants or shrubs, those are called intermediate species in the middle. Next up is conifers, coniferous pine trees, and they're incredibly important. Your youngest forests are all going to be pine. What they do is they can grow in bright sunlight and low moisture conditions, and then they shade the smaller deciduous trees so that the sun doesn't just kill them when they're saplings. So we call that facilitation. Facilitation is where one species in succession helps the next species grow. So a mature forest at its climax, look at that word, climatic climax, the furthest level that succession can occur. Now for a place like Indiana, we make it all the way to a deciduous forest. But think about the desert. Is it ever going to get to pine trees? Probably not. So its climax is much further down, usually about shrubs. Okay, so the climax is not the same for every biome. Some biomes only make it a little way. One last concept here today, very much like Mr. Drop's hairline, something called chronic patchiness. So places like deserts, once again, will not reach forest levels in terms of succession. They just can't support it. So harsh environments will have a mix of shrubs and grasses, but never progress past that.